What's going on, guys? My name is Brendan Harberts.
I'm Dalton Katz.
I'm Gene Dickey.
Welcome to the Workbench Podcast, episode number 5. What's going on, guys? Again, my name is Brendan Harberts.
And I'm Dalton Katz, and you guys are at the Workbench Podcast, the first podcast in Sioux Falls solely based on the interesting, exciting people in the Sioux Falls area and their projects. And today we have our guest, Gene Dickey. Thanks for being on here, Gene.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We are very excited to have you on, Gene. You have a very interesting story, and we're really interested in diving a little bit more into what you do and your own personal story. So if you don't mind, introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
My name is Gene Dickey. I am the Community Outreach Manager for the National Kidney Foundation, serving the Dakotas. So I manage both North and South Dakota, all outreach, communication, events, and programming.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit how you got involved with the National Kidney Foundation.
My involvement started actually as a volunteer. And I know we're going to get into my story a little bit. I have a personal connection as well, but I came in as a volunteer in 2010 and served the board for 5 years as a board member and then the chair. And then in 2015, our national office decided they wanted to open an office here in the Dakotas to focus on a little bit more outreach. And so I moved from corporate America to the nonprofit realm and have been there for the last 4 years. So
I was going to say, you kind of touched on that there, Gene. I guess you guys have a national foundation. You have a lot of local chapters. What is the overall function of the National Kidney Foundation? What is the ultimate goal of the foundation?
The National Kidney Foundation really focuses on 3 separate areas. We focus on outreach and advocacy, programming and education, and then the treatment of kidney disease. So we've been around for almost 70 years now, and our main focus has been a lot in the past of focusing on setting the standards for dialysis and transplant and those type of things. And then over the last few years, we've really focused a little bit more on getting out into the community, patient advocacy, and some of those type of things.
And so did a lot of the National Kidney Foundation start like with doctors, hospitals, things along those lines? Is that who a lot of your people you work with?
Are initially, yes. So a lot of, we do a lot of professional education and aspect on the professional side. It's interesting story how we originally started was a mother who's had a son who had kidney disease and there was nothing out there. And so she was kind of our founding. And so over the years we grew and have became really good at being, like I said, a medical organization. And then over the last few years, it's really now been important for us to start working with our patients and the advocacy side of things because we're seeing kidney disease grow so rampantly.
Can you dive in a little bit about kidney disease? Maybe just dive into like some numbers about it.
Sure. Kidney disease currently, the statistic from the Center for Disease Control is 36 million Americans, which is 1 in 7 adults have kidney disease.
Wow.
And less than 10% are diagnosed. So really, it is important for us to start having these conversations so people know. The other scary statistic is 1 in 3 Americans are at risk. Top 2 leading causes of kidney disease right now are diabetes and hypertension, high blood pressure. So they're 2 things that we see happening a lot right now. A lot of it with lifestyle, stress, things like that. And so it's really important for people to know their numbers. And if we can educate people soon enough, they can prevent them from having to go into potentially maybe dialysis or transplant.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to ask, I guess that's something that's kind of always been interesting to me too, is do you think that the rise in levels, I guess, is more attributable to the lifestyle choices and things along those lines, or maybe just because we're getting better at detecting it?
It's a good question. I'm not a doctor by any means, so this is more of a personal opinion, I guess. But I think it's probably a mixture of both. I see, kidney disease is one of those things where, at least when in my experience, is a lot of people don't talk about. And so it's really quiet. And so when people don't talk about it, it doesn't come out. And so people don't think about it and those type of things. So I think one of the things that you're seeing is now people are talking about it a little bit more and getting a little bit more, which is important for us for the education aspect. I think also, we're seeing a rise in diabetes and hypertension, which I don't know if, to your point, is it lifestyle change? Yes, I would guess I look at the fact of like when I was growing up, we didn't eat fast food.
Yeah.
That's the
And
way
now
life
it's
was
everywhere.
and now
It's
now that
literally
seems like what we
everywhere.
all do. So on that aspect, I think we're probably seeing a change there, but
Very interesting.
So why do you think kidney disease is not as talked about? Because you said that 1 in 3 are not
At
risk. 1 in 3 at risk.
And then how many are not diagnosed?
1 in 7 have it. 10%, less than 10% are diagnosed.
Okay, so why is that? Why is it not a conversation about kidney? Because we always hear about other diseases like
Correct.
constantly. How come kidney disease seems to be like one that people just don't take seriously?
The interesting thing about kidney disease is a couple different things. And again, my personal opinion tied into this is a lot of times kidney disease ties into other things. So cardiac and kidney go hand in hand.
Right.
So a great example is right now cardiac or kidney is the number 9th leading cause of death in America.
Really?
Yeah,
It is?
It is. And
I
however,
did not know that.
if somebody, let's say, has kidney disease and has a heart attack, cardiac is going to be the cause of death.
Right.
However,
So it's a lot of times it's supplementary into the
correct, tied
outcome.
into something else. The second thing is from personal experience, I can say that kidney disease tends to be very isolating due to the fact that a lot of times those who have it they don't look sick.
Oh yeah.
And everything seems fine. And so people just don't necessarily always understand that aspect of it. And so it's just, it tends to see where patients will isolate themselves a little bit more when they have it.
Well, I was actually just going to say, because being that my family has a history of diabetes, we have genetic diabetes, some people with type 2 diabetes, so the whole spectrum. I mean, that kind of freaks me out. I guess I could be potentially somebody at risk just given my genetic history and things along those lines. What are some maybe warning signs or things that I can do personally to be able to find out if that's something that I'm at risk for?
It's an interesting question because unfortunately, there are not a lot of symptoms or side effects to kidney disease until it's too late.
Really?
Yeah. So usually,
God, that sucks.
usually we're seeing it stage 4, stage 5.
Yeah.
And somebody's taking, like a family member is taking somebody to the doctor and saying, something's not right. We don't know what it is. So one of the biggest things is we tell people to have conversations with their doctor. It's an ongoing conversation. Typically, kidneys are not always part of your typical physical unless there's a reason to check them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we say it's really important to have that conversation with your doctor, because if your family history, things like that, make sure that they're at least checking occasionally in that aspect. One of the things that we do with the National Kidney Foundation is we actually have what we call our Keep Healthy screening process. And so we do pop-up screenings throughout the year for the general public. And basically what we do is we look at risk factors. We don't ever say we diagnose, but where people can come in and we do blood pressure screening, BMI test, family history, urinalysis. So we check for protein levels in the urine. And then we have clinicians, RNs and higher, that can meet with everybody to talk about what their risk factors are.
How long does that screening take?
15 minutes about.
So it's literally 15 minutes that could end up potentially saving your life
Correct.
and making your life a lot better.
And then is it just a combination of those things that you're looking at then? I know that you're not the doctor there. I know, so I can't hold you to it.
Yeah,
but
You're going to have to be for this conversation, so just bear with us.
because we are definitely not. So I guess, is that like you're looking at a multitude of things when you go in to read all those? Is there like one thing that, or how do I even bring that conversation up with my doctor?
So if you're talking to your doctor, there's what we call, there's a blood, basically it's a blood and urine test they can take. And it will be measuring your creatinine level is what we call it.
Okay.
So it's something that's easy for them to do on their aspect. What we're looking at, and that's where I said we don't diagnose because we don't do the blood work aspect of it.
Mhm.
What we're looking at is we're looking at BMI. So we're looking at weight as a possible risk factor. Family history. So do you have family history of diabetes, hypertension, those things? It's a possible risk factor. Blood pressure. If your blood pressure is high when you're coming into us, we know it's a risk factor. And then one of the things that we look at is protein levels in the urine. And so what we do is then our clinicians will take a look at it. And if they see 2 or more of those things as red flags, they'll give the person that's going through the screening a sheet to give to their family doctor to actually help with some of that conversation.
Oh,
as well.
kind of initiate that
Yep.
conversation. Okay, that's awesome. As far as that goes, Gene, how did you get involved into the National Kidney Foundation? Tell us a little bit of your story and why you left corporate America for that.
So yeah, it's a little bit of it's a little bit of a long story, but it's
love
interesting.
Long stories,
you love long
Gene.
stories.
That's
okay.
why we're here.
I was actually in college. I was attending. I know you guys are both Iowa boys. I went to Iowa Lakes Community College.
That's cool.
in
That's where my
Evansburg.
dad went.
Yeah.
The 712.
Heck yeah.
So I was going to Iowa Lakes and was a couple weeks before our finals, and so was prepping, kind of getting through that aspect. Was trying to decide what I wanted to do. I was ending my 2 years, whether I wanted to go on for 4 years, find a job. I was actually in the process of running for national president of a student organization nationally.
Did you win?
I did.
That's what you're a winner. I like this.
And so one day in one of my classes, I was just really feeling weak and tired and actually blacked out in one of my classes. And so my friends are like, you need to go to the doctor. Went to the doctor and they ran some tests, and Emmitsburg is a really small town.
Yes, it is.
So the doctor says, well, we want to run some more tests. Why don't you go over to the hospital? I said I knew I was in trouble when the ER people met me with a gurney at the door.
Oh.
And they hadn't warned you up until that point?
No.
Oh, wow.
And told me that I had been admitted for 24-hour observation.
Holy cow. You're like,
welcome.
what?
Yeah.
Welcome to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
So kind of good news, bad news, the aspect of it. Good news is the blackout spell, the weakness and things like that was stress related. I am a notably workaholic, and I admit to that. And the bad news is, though, that they saw high protein levels in my urine, and that's what they were kind of worried about. And so they said, you need to see a kidney specialist. So being from Sioux Falls area, I came back to Sioux Falls to meet with a doctor, and through process, we ran some more tests and did a biopsy and found out they diagnosed me with FSGS, which is focal segmental glomerulosclerosis.
Say that again.
Focal segmental glomerulosclerosis.
That's very impressive.
So explain the big word. What does that mean?
Yeah, what is that?
For us people that
we get it.
Yeah,
but
we totally know what
for
you're talking
them,
about.
they may not.
Yeah.
No. FSGS basically is the deterioration of your filtering systems.
Okay.
So hence the reason why there was more protein.
Yep.
Because the filters weren't working. I was told at that point that it was about 50% function, and that I had about anywhere from 8 to 10 years before I would probably need transplant or dialysis.
And how old were you in this?
I was 19.
You're like, what?
Wow.
So, of course, unfortunately, at that point, it stopped everything kind of for planning wise of what I wanted to do. I still did, though, run for national president and spent my first year being diagnosed traveling a lot.
Can't imagine that's a good idea, is it?
Actually, no, it probably wasn't the best idea. There was a research happening at the time where they told me that there was a study that you could shock the kidney back into function. And to do that was with 100 milligrams of prednisone.
Okay.
So I spent a year on 100 milligrams of prednisone, which happened to be that year I was traveling. And so, yeah, there are pictures of me. If anybody knows anything about prednisone, you retain fluid, all that. So, yeah, because it's a steroid.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there are pictures of if I smiled, I closed my eyes because I had retained that much fluid.
That had to be uncomfortable, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was very. And so their timeline was actually almost perfect. It was about 9 years. When they decided that it was time that kidneys had come to a point that we needed to look at dialysis or transplant. I vowed I would never do dialysis. I just didn't want to. I had watched a friend go through it. I didn't want to. So I reached out to my friends and family and asked about if anybody would consider donating. My uncle, my mom's brother, was actually my first donor. He's a military man. It was actually kind of a cool situation with him. He hadn't been very close to the family because he traveled a lot for the military and things like that. And so this actually has brought him very close to the family. I see him every year. Him and my mom talk about every other week. It's brought a whole new dynamic to our family.
Wow. Very unique way. But
And about a year and a half into it, though, we started having some complications and the kidney started to reject. And at that point, again, came to the decision of having to have dialysis or transplant. So ended up starting dialysis.
Can you explain what dialysis is?
Dialysis is actually the filtration of your blood. So basically it's a machine that's doing the job of your kidney for you.
Oh.
So it's basically filtering your blood, taking all the fluid aspect of it out and waste, and then putting it back into your body.
And I got to see this firsthand, but can you explain to everybody kind of what the schedule of what that is and what kind of time commitment that is to people that have to go through that?
It really kind of sometimes depends on the person. My situation was 3 times a week for 3 to 4 hours.
3 to 4 hours?
Yes. You're laying in a chair.
Job.
And I'm guessing you have to go in to do that, correct?
Yes and no. I did.
Okay.
But there is now the availability of home dialysis.
Holy cow.
There's also peritoneal where actually you can administer yourself. But
9 to 12 hours a week doing that, just doing nothing for 3 hours.
Yes, laying in a chair.
I can't even sit down for 10 minutes.
And then the problem is ultimately it's the same thing as dehydrating yourself, because
So then
ultimately
you feel like crap after
you're
done.
taking the fluid out.
Probably have a
and-
headache. You probably just are like, then what? You just got to just chug a gallon of water or?
No, because you can't have the fluid on you because your kidneys aren't working.
Oh.
So you're typically, once you start dialysis, you're on a fluid restriction of where you can only have this much water per day.
That does not sound fun.
No.
Wow. So at 19 years old, I mean, did you know, assuming your major before, you didn't know a whole lot about kidneys. So what's going through your head when you get diagnosed? And at 19 years old, I know where I was mentally, and I can't imagine how I would have reacted.
For me, everything stopped. I mean, literally, like I said, at that point, I had been looking at 4-year colleges. I was looking at what I wanted to do. And everything just kind of, for me, froze. And, and like I said, I'm a perfect example of where I isolated a lot of what I was going through away from my friends and family. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had a huge support system, and I would have never gotten through this without them. However, there are a lot of times where I always joke of what happens behind closed doors happens behind closed doors when you're dealing with this type of stuff. And which is unfortunately is what I think a lot of patients contend with. So once I started dialysis, actually, they told me it'd be 10 to 13 years to find a match.
So you'd have to do dialysis for that long too?
Correct.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, average life expectancy on dialysis is about 5 years.
Oh man.
Wow.
So I got a phone call, very luckily, 17 months after I started dialysis. And it was a donor. He was 44 years old, passed away from cardiac arrest, Boston, Massachusetts area. Those are the only things I know about him. And it's perfect, almost like they said they would have guessed he was my brother. I mean, and it's funny because that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but they said it was that much of a match.
Really?
And so from there, we actually had my transplant. And about a year into it is when I decided I wanted to do something to give back and kind of figure out how to help those who are still fighting.
Yeah.
And so I found the National Kidney Foundation, went to a walk. And it was really kind of cool because the walk experience is kind of one of the first times that I realized I wasn't alone. Because there was a whole lot of people who contend with this every day. And then it was a couple months after that, I got asked if I would consider coming to the board. And that was kind of then the story of me getting to staff. It was funny though, because like I said, I was in corporate America, and when they asked me to come to the nonprofit realm, I originally laughed at them and said, "Why would I leave corporate America?" But yeah, it kind of fell into place of an opportunity. That's the part I love about my job is considered outreach. So I get to work with patients. I get to work with the medical side. I get to work with, events and programming. And so I get a little mixture of everything with what I do. So
yeah, I was just going to ask that. You've said that you're not the doctor, obviously, but what is Gene's particular position within the organization? What's your day to day look like? What does your week look like as far as work goes?
So different aspects of my job. One things that I do is in the programming world. We have different programs, like I said, the Keep Healthy screenings. So my job is actually to find locations, set those up, work with the volunteers to get that up and running. And I manage both Dakotas. So we do things in Sioux Falls, and we also do things in Fargo. As we're trying to spread out more, that will change as we move west. But so Keep Healthy. We had a new program that actually just got introduced, which was really exciting that we were able to do in Sioux Falls this year, called the Big Ask, Big Give. And that is a new program where it helps patients who are waiting on the national list for a transplant teach them how to help them find a donor. So using social media, how do you tell your story, kind of outreach in those aspects. We had 101 people in the room that day when we did that education event.
That's awesome.
Which is the second largest currently in the country.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
I was
so
going
we
to
were,
say, can you give me some kind of scale? I mean, how big is the National Kidney Foundation? How many states are you
Yeah,
in? How many volunteers work for you guys? How does that work?
so it's interesting. We have, so each office in our region anyways, manages multiple states.
Okay.
So like, for instance, I manage North and South Dakota. My colleague in Iowa runs Iowa and Nebraska. So my boss, as an example, runs basically everything Iowa, Missouri to California.
Oh, wow.
So he gets like
As a regional
30
VP.
states.
Yeah, as a regional VP. And so to give you an idea of that aspect is there is then 7 offices in that area that he
Okay.
helps oversee.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Makes
And
sense.
then do you guys have numbers as far as like how many people help volunteer every year for your walks and things along those lines?
Locally, I do, but not nationally. Nationally, it's the numbers are a little bit insane. But we have, so like we do a walk in Sioux Falls, we do a walk in Fargo. For us to do the walk in Sioux Falls, we need at least probably about anywhere from 30 to 50 volunteers, depending on what we're doing. Fargo, it's a little bit smaller, so about 20, 30.
Okay.
We do a golf tournament in Sioux Falls. So we do a social the night before and then golf tournament. So between those 2 days, we can have anywhere from probably 30 to 60 volunteers helping us.
Wow.
Awesome.
The screening process is we probably do with 20 to 30. The nice thing is with screening process is we tap a lot of times medical students to kind of help come get some practicum.
Good experience for
Yeah.
them. Absolutely. So you mentioned that you guys do different sorts of events as far as walks, as
Yes.
far as different outreach programs. Can you talk about maybe all of them a little bit and then maybe what you've been working on lately?
Okay. So we do, we have 3 major events between the Dakotas. We have 2 walks and our golf tournament. So our Sioux Falls walk, which actually we're looking at incorporating a run this year. So a little bit of a change there. That usually falls in June.
People actually like to run.
That's what they tell me.
I will be there in support, but I will not be running.
Can we hold signs on the side of it?
So that usually falls in June. Our golf tournament is in August this year. It'll be the end of August. And like I said, it's a social the night before and then and then also golf tournament then day of, which is Hilton Garden Inn the night before and Willow Run is where we host our tournament. Yeah.
Brandon knows a thing or two about that.
Good course.
And then Fargo, we do a walk at Shields Arena in October.
Oh, okay.
So we go indoor there because of never knowing what the weather will do in October.
Yeah. Especially in Fargo.
Absolutely.
So I just have a question, maybe more personally to both of you, but because I had never met Gene up until this point for those watching. How did you guys end up meeting then? Because I know you guys have known each other for a little while.
Actually, we met initially because we were going to get coffee like last year because you messaged me, but we never could get it scheduled or I forgot to respond. One of the two. And then in August, you had your social coming up and you wanted to get some video work done. And then we met through that. And I can attest that social, that was packed. Like that had how many people? How many people do you think you had there?
100, 150. We actually, so
packed.
we had the 2 of the 3 ballrooms at the Hilton Garden Inn, and this year actually we're going all 3.
And they were all full too.
Yeah.
I was like walking in, I was like kind of expecting a smaller group because I, filming in front of all those people's like whatever. But then I walk in like, this is like a legit like huge thing. It was
Brandon's
awesome.
like, I didn't bring enough equipment for this.
I'm kind of nervous now. Like everyone's looking at me, but you've done a great job.
Thank you.
A question I have. So what is your 5-year goal with NKF and how can you continue to expand and grow? Because obviously you started something phenomenal here in Sioux Falls. It's growing. So what does that next step kind of look like for you? We're just throwing this
as
one out
much
there.
as you can tell us, I guess.
It's a good question. I am, as I said, unfortunately by fault, I'm a workaholic, which ultimately means I usually think big.
Think big and can't say no, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I really in 5 years, I would love to see us be doing more throughout both states. I would love to be in a situation where we have staff. I am an office of one.
That would be also nice. I mean,
so that's actually where some of our limitations come in. I have a great volunteer core group. I have a great board of advisors that kind of helps with the things that we're doing in both of our major markets of Fargo and Sioux Falls, but we're slowly trying to branch out. And so that would be one of the biggest things. We're actually going to do our first major event in Rapid City.
Nice.
In 2020 for education.
First time being out there.
Yes.
Rapid. Nice.
Yeah. So we're kind of excited about that, just to kind of explore and see what the potential is out there. So I would say that staffing and help growing. We know that there is a need throughout the state. I mean, we have the benefit. I always say that one thing that we have really good for, especially Sioux Falls and even Fargo for that matter, is we have great medical networks.
Yeah, for sure.
Nephrology, transplant are incredible. Not always the case as you move west.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, we know that there's more of a need as much for us to be there to kind of outreach and those type of things. So it's just trying to get there. So that's one of the things of where we're trying to grow as much as we can, both not physically, but also financially, to help us move that way.
Absolutely. And I guess I don't know how much you can talk about this as well, but how are you guys funded? Do you guys rely mainly on donations then from people, or is that
donations in our events?
Okay.
So that's really I joke that my year kind of runs cyclically.
but almost literally.
So June, like summer months, is basically our event time, where that's where my focus is 9 times out of 10 of where. And then typically as soon as Fargo Walk is over, it's then our fiscal year runs, interesting enough, April to March. March is National Kidney Month. So that's kind of our big kind of end of the year for us. And so really once I get done with Walk, I go into programming and kind of plan for the rest of the year. So usually our programming happens during the winter months.
Gotcha.
And then planning for March for National Kidney Month. And then it's kind of now this time of year, I've already started that cycle into events of looking at the walks and golf for
I was going to say, are you going to let yourself have a holiday season, or is that non-existent for you?
a little bit?
One day.
One day.
Wonderful. That's funny. So what I'm curious about as well. So you talk about how you have the screenings, pop-up screenings places. So are those for anybody and everybody to come in and just get checked out, or would you recommend people that have a family history of kidney disease, or are you like, hey, if you're around, come do this, please?
If you're around, come around and do that.
Right.
Come do this. I'm living proof.
Right.
I don't have family history.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no reason statistically why I have or why I had FSGS.
Yeah.
I'm the only person in my family with kidney disease. So I am it's not like as common as you would see it, but I always tell somebody it's better to be checked and to know where you're at.
It takes 15 minutes, right?
Exactly.
Well, and one thing that kind of caught my ear earlier, I guess, was, they had mentioned that you were going to have to wait up to 13 years, did you say, for that eventual kidney donation? I've heard of different pushes in the past to get people to sign up to be organ donors, things along those lines. Why is that such a problem? Why can't we figure out a better system for that, or why is the wait list so long for something like that?
It's interesting. I mean, one of the things with the benefit that I always say that we have with kidney, unfortunately, we are the largest number on the list. So I think we run anywhere from 95,000 to over 100,000 people on the list waiting for a kidney.
Even more than heart transplants?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And the hard part, though, is with us, in which you would think that it should be easier to get, is we can have living transplants.
Yeah.
I mean, so
because you only need, that's not a myth. You can live with one, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So, one of the things that I think that we're getting better at, and it's something that we haven't done really good at. And I say we as in public, medical side, even NKF for that matter, is educating on living donorship. And that's where the Big Aspect Give is a huge thing right now, where we can teach patients of how to have that conversation with somebody and educate them on really statistically the risk factor for a donor right now. A doctor told me not too long ago it was tied to about the same as an appendectomy.
Oh, wow. Because I was actually just going to say that. Like somebody, you tell me that, and I'm going, "You're crazy if you think you're letting me cut me open." But I mean, I was going to ask, what is the survivorship? I mean, what is the?
There is a long testing process for a donor, and because what they want to do is they want to make sure that you're not going to have complications in the near future. I mean, because
then all of a sudden you'll need a kidney.
Exactly,
and it's like great,
not doing anybody good by adding another person to the list.
So, I mean, and there are different things that are in place. So for instance, if you donated and then you ultimately had something, you would get prioritized with the national list because you were a donor. But in the aspect of what you're, there is such a long testing process to make sure, number one, that you're a match, number two, that you're not going to have complications, and they're looking at family history and all those type of things. So the risk factor really for a donor is minimal compared to what you might think. It's same as basically having a surgery is what the doctors are.
That's crazy.
Tell me, do you have to do anything special after you donate a kidney to maintain normal function?
The donors that I know, typically they work with a nephrologist, a kidney specialist, and just kind of make sure they're keeping up with their numbers and double checking. But really, no, because you can live with one.
I was do you happen to know off the top of your head what percentage of donors are living versus unfortunately deceased? I guess?
No, unfortunately, no. But, so to your point of, talking about of like the push for donors, Donate Life does a great avenue of, talking about putting donor on your driver's license and things like that.
Oh, for sure. It's
always talking about, though, one thing is if you are a donor, make sure you're having that conversation with your family so that they understand that if something happens, that you're able to, that process is able to go smoothly and help with those availability as well.
Absolutely. No, that's wow.
So basically take away one thing, become an organ donor because you could save someone else's life.
Exactly.
So I guess when you started out this process, obviously you got a call a lot sooner as far as your own donation is concerned. Was there anything else that you were doing behind the scenes? I guess I know you guys had kind of talked about it before we got on camera here, but as far as your fitness journey and things along those lines, I guess, did this have anything to do with that, or were they related, or?
It's interesting because so I started a recent, I guess you can say, fitness journey. And one of the things is really interesting as a kidney patient is you have to be very careful about what you put into your body. So no supplements, no, anything you do has to be cleared through your doctor and things like that. And so
why? I mean, dumb question maybe, but why is that?
Just to make sure that it's not affecting the kidney.
Okay.
Great. So perfect example of what something you might not even think of is like ibuprofen.
Oh yeah.
Processes through your kidney.
Makes sense.
Oh, I did.
Tylenol actually processes through the liver.
So Tylenol is fine.
For me, yes. I mean, for a normal person, it's not. Yeah. But there are people who will have symptoms of kidney failure if they take too much ibuprofen, if they're taking it all the time.
Holy cow.
To kind of mask, the pain or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's making sure those are things that as a normal person, I mean, wouldn't have even thought of until somebody said, hey, by the way, you can't take ibuprofen anymore because.
So you got to change everything then.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because I'm a whiskey fan. Are you allowed? How much are you allowed to drink? I mean,
my favorite supplement, whiskey.
This isn't a supplement, but I mean,
that's a whole new health journey right there.
If you're telling me all of a sudden I got to stop drinking Crown Royal, like, come on.
It's interesting. So, for drinking wise, moderate.
So you can have alcohol.
Yes.
Okay. Because I figured because that was maybe more of a liver thing, but I also know with diabetes, that's something that and so concerned about a lot too.
So to your point of in my situation, I can't say that everybody who is a transplant can, because again, if it's tied into diabetes or something like that, their doctor might. So it's always an individual conversation with your doctor and making sure that they're. And so that's kind of with the fitness journey that I'm going right now it is literally exercise and diet. And so talking to my doctor and saying, hey, these are the foods I'm working with and this is what I'm eating. And is this okay? And yep. And so
is there any certain dietary, not requirement or requirements, restrictions,
recommendations?
Recommendations that they tell you?
The biggest thing is sodium, stay low on
That
sodium.
would suck. No soy sauce. No soy sauce. No popcorn seasoning. I would die.
Brennan can't put his popcorn cheddar on,
Dude,
on
that would
everything.
Suck. So low sodium.
Low sodium. That's kind of the biggest. One thing is not a lot of you can have protein, but make sure it's a mix of protein. And like in my situation, they don't want a lot of protein because
Really?
part of the reason for that is that is one of the things that we saw right away.
Yeah.
So making sure that I'm keeping that balanced diet. So the fact that I don't see something like, because ultimately one of the big things I would is, and I've seen this with when we do our screening, college students who are on supplements or something,
Just down in protein.
well, right. And so they'll get an elevated protein reading.
Yeah.
When they go through. And so then that's sometimes the conversations that our clinicians have to have with them is, okay, what did you have today? What's,
so like even just a shake before could spike their levels
Could.
a few hours later.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, because I was just going to say, being us fitness guys, I mean, keep low protein. That's almost heresy in our space.
well,
I
and that's
guess.
why I said it's not necessarily low protein, but I mean, it's just moderate. I mean, making sure that that's not the only thing they want me eating in my diet for that
So
fact.
no keto diet for you though.
Correct.
Oh man. So so basically what they're telling you is that you'd have to not lower it, but be consistent with it. So that way
Yeah.
when you go in and get tested again, it's like, hey, I've had 150 grams the last 2 weeks. And if something looks off, then you would know it's off.
Correct.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. Any other like nutrition stuff?
Those are the two probably biggest that, at least in my situation. And like I said, for, I mean, when you're dealing with diabetics, it's going to tie into probably more of the sugars and some of
for
those
sure.
type of things as well.
Tell us about your fitness journey. What have you done a lot? I've been keeping track of it on Facebook. I love seeing what you've been doing. You've changed a lot since the first time I've met you. Tell us about it.
I've actually started working with a coach, and
You can name drop them.
I can name drop him.
Yeah.
Okay. I've actually, Casey Nickel with GNC started a
good guy.
new Live Well program, which the great thing that I loved about it when he approached me on it was the mere fact of no supplements. Okay, come, let's see what we can do, and let's match this out. So actually started go to the gym 3-4 days a week. Pretty much have a set kind of calorie macro menu that I follow.
Nice.
And so down probably about 20-25 pounds in less than 3 months.
Wow.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Awesome work.
That's awesome.
For real, that's really good. I
Thank
can
you.
tell him remember the next time I saw you, I was like, dude, you look totally different. That's awesome, for real. I'm glad
Thank
you're
you.
working with Casey. Casey's a really good
Yeah.
dude. He does
I was
a
going
really
to
good
say,
job.
Casey, if you're watching, go Broncos. But
Also, come on our podcast.
but I was going to say, I guess, we have our own recommendations that we would maybe give clients that we're working with. We're both current and former trainers. I guess we would know what we would tell certain people in normal circumstances. Does the National Kidney Foundation have any recommendations as far as types of exercise that you should be doing?
It's really interesting. So it's funny because the National Kidney Foundation, on the aspect of we were, again, no supplements, same as the medical community in that aspect of, because everybody is so different. One of the big things that the National Kidney Foundation talks a lot about is diet. I mean, and just kind of watching your sodium, watching those type of things.
Sure.
Really the newest thing that came out, and it probably came out 6 months to a year ago, is the new quote unquote kidney friendly diet is the same as the DASH diet, which is your
interesting.
cardiac.
Yeah.
And part of that is with cardiac and kidney running so close together, is where a lot of that comes in. So the biggest recommendation right now we have is the DASH diet.
That's super
It
interesting.
makes sense that the training part of it really won't matter too much, because I mean, like heart issues are going to be like, don't do high intense cardio if you can't handle it. But
Right.
like kidney stuff, like probably doesn't matter a ton for like what your actual exercise consists of. Just exercise and be healthy.
Well, and I suppose overall, just lowering your blood pressure is never going to hurt anything as
Yeah.
far as
Yeah.
obviously. If
Well,
you-
and I think probably the biggest thing too is, if there's any patients watching and who are looking at going down this avenue of fitness journey, is having that conversation with their doctor,
for sure.
because, dialysis patients, I can show this to you guys. This is a fistula.
Can you explain to me what that
Yeah.
means?
So this is actually how they do dialysis. And so, so you have to be careful that you're not putting weight,
Oh,
because actually if you Feel that.
Whoa. It's like, bzzing.
Yeah, isn't it? Whoa.
It's actually the blood flow that you're feeling.
For those that couldn't feel what we just felt there. Like it was almost like there was something vibrating
like a vibration,
in his wrist.
I was not expecting that.
No.
Yeah. So, and I'm 10 years out and it's still working. So sometimes, people will have where it's rerouted or things like that. So I'm kind of really lucky to still have it. And I use it as kind of a talking point when I talk to people too about the mere effect of some of the things that you'll have. And you'll see dialysis patients who will have it going up their arms and things like that. So sometimes when you're talking weights and things like that, you have to be careful.
You don't want to have wrist wraps on and deadlifting 300 pounds.
Correct.
Please don't do that.
And so just, Gene, I guess along the lines of your fitness journey and your path from ultimately kind of coming into this super blind as far as understanding what you were going through and everything like that, what do you suppose was your biggest hang up in getting to the point of wanting to kind of attack the fitness and diet and everything side of things? What made you start this right now, and what's kind of motivating you at this point?
I think probably for me, it's a good question. One of the things that I learned probably through the kidney process leading into this is it's important to be your own advocate. I had, and I don't even know, I think you know this, I had a little bit of a health scare 2 years ago.
Okay.
I think I do remember that.
Yeah. You're going to laugh when I say it's a health scare because it's not really I actually had a heart attack. Be 2 years in March.
Okay.
Had a heart attack actually at a health fair. I was at work. I was working.
The irony.
Yeah, the irony. I was in Aberdeen, South Dakota at the university and was setting up for a health fair and went down. And they did 2 rounds of CPR and an AD defibrillator to bring me back.
Wow.
Quadruple bypass over Easter that year. And so, so that actually kind of helped push me a little bit further. But yeah, so last year coming out of that, it was really trying to kind of start to leverage for me balance between work and life. Because I said I am a workaholic and I have a lot of passion to do the work that I do. And I want to do my job and do it well for the people who are still out there and make a difference for them. But I also need to know that I'm my best self in the process.
Right.
And so that was kind of, this year was kind of trying to find that balance for myself. And so when I started the fitness journey aspect of it, it was kind of a two-prong for me. Number one is to do it and do it for myself and to make sure that I am at my best to be able to do the job that I want to do and that I do every day. And then secondly, also for people to see that it can be done and done the right way. I mean, that's, I think that's one of the hard things that at least I looked at prior to going down this journey was, I can't take supplements. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm never going to lose the weight. And so then to have this opportunity to say, hey, let's try it, but let's do it the right way, And so that's kind of where I think got me to where I'm at.
I was going to say, I think that's what's the most inspiring thing about the whole part of it, because I've always joked that I'm probably the least inspiring person I've ever met because I've never been big and gotten small. I've never been small, gotten big. I've always been about this size since about 8th grade. So it's just, I think for other people, it's hard for me to really share that story and be like, to tell other people that it's important. Whereas you have been there, done that, you're walking the walk and you're talking the talk essentially to be able to show people that, that this is possible for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome work, for real.
Yeah,
You're doing a great job. Question I was thinking about earlier. So the majority of your volunteers or people that are running chapters across the U.S., are a lot of them people that have gone through what you've gone through?
Volunteers, yes. Staff, no.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, in fact, so our staff, and when I say our staff, my bosses who handles our region, there are, I believe 2 of us that are directly affected as in patient stands. One is me as a patient and the other one was a living donor.
Gotcha. Interesting. Another question I had that I was thinking about earlier. So the degree of severity of kidney disease, is there a pretty wide range of like you have very severe kidney disease or do you have very mild? Like, is that a thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So explain the differences between those and how treatment might vary between those two.
So there are technically 5 stages to kidney disease.
Oh.
Really, we don't start worrying about anything or talking about anything. I shouldn't say not worrying about anything, but talking about anything.
Those lower level ones don't matter.
You're number 1, so you're okay. Stage 1. Stage 3 is kind of where usually when someone hits stage 3 is where now your family doctor, if it's caught, is saying we probably should get you to a kidney specialist, start having those conversations, those type of things.
Gotcha.
So stage 4 and stage 5 is when we have to start talking about treatment, potentially treatment. Stage 5 is probably where now you're looking at either starting dialysis or you're looking at transplant, whatever. Yep. So one of the things is really, that's where we say, like in stage 3, if you catch it early enough and it's a hypertension issue that's causing it, if you're watching your blood pressure and you're starting to eat right and do those things, you may never get to stage 4 and stage 5.
So then, sorry, this is dumb, but does stage 3 go to stage 1?
Nope. Stage 3 goes to stage 4, stage 5. So
no.
Yeah,
sorry. I meant like if you take care of it, does it go down to like stage 1 where, you don't care about them?
I'm not saying we don't care about them, Brandon. They're number 1. They're good.
You think you have kidney disease?
Typically, so it's interesting. A lot of times once kidney failure happens, it happens. Mm-hmm. So it's not, I'm not going to say it never happens, because there are people who go on dialysis who ultimately do get to come off depending on what caused the kidney disease.
Okay. That makes sense.
Great example is, we talked about a little bit about ibuprofen.
Mm-hmm.
So if ultimately you have kidney failure from too much ibuprofen, it gets through your system, things like that. Ultimately, there could be a situation where you gain that functionality back.
It blows my mind you can do that from ibuprofen. Stop popping those things like Skittles, man. Like those can have a bad effect on you.
So in those situations, it's not really common, but it can happen where you can get better. A lot of it is managing those numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any besides yourself, any celebrity spokesmen throughout the U.S.?
I like that little.
Are there any people that are literally like celebrity athletes or anything, or people that you know of that have gone through this?
So a couple that have recent, and again, it seems like more and more lately we've been seeing it come up. But nationally, we have right now, we've been doing a lot of things in pediatric world.
Okay.
And so we've had spokesperson Angelica Hale, who won second in America's Got Talent.
Okay, nice.
She actually had a transplant. Her mom donated to her.
Okay.
As a young child, and so shared her story through that process, and has since come on and does spots for us through National Kidney Month, things like that.
That's really cool.
Last year, Jerry Rice did some spoke spots for us. His brother's on dialysis.
Pretty good athlete.
Yes. And then more recently, who you've seen nationally is Sarah Hyland from Modern Family.
Oh, yeah.
She's had 2 transplants over the last few years.
Really?
Interesting.
And
wow.
There's somebody else I'm missing on the top of my head. But yeah, so I mean, we're starting to see it.
Which is phenomenal, I'm sure, just for the outreach part of it, for people actually taking it seriously. And, they have these people that they see, they look up to, they see that are celebrities, and that's probably gonna be a huge part of pushing forward, National Kidney Foundation, is having these people being like, hey, this can happen to you. Like anybody watching this, just go get checked out. Right.
Right.
So that's a huge part of it.
And the big thing is there's so much, and we talked about this a little bit beforehand. There are so many different areas of kidney disease, and types and things like that. So that's where it's so hard to, drive home, because everybody, like I said, people can be very healthy, but ultimately have one thing that's happening in the kidneys that they may not know.
Well, and I guess along those lines, as well as figuring outreach and things into those perspective, we mentioned or touched on before that we're pretty blessed in the Sioux Falls area having the health systems that we do between the Sanfords and Averas. Have you guys teamed up with any of them to kind of improve the outreach of the program?
Actually, we work with both hospital networks here in Sioux Falls.
Awesome.
It's their clinicians that come help us with our screening process. We actually have both medical networks have members that sit on my board of advisors who kind of help advise us on the directions we're going and what we're doing. So yeah, we're very lucky for the partnership that we have with both networks.
I'm sure that helps a ton being able to have people like that on hand to do that stuff for
I was going to say, and it's kind of cool just from my perspective, seeing those big organizations being able to put some of the competition aside on occasion to be able to actually work for the overall common good. That's very cool to hear.
It's probably just because that could be anything, even they're on their staff. Like that's anybody and everybody, you know, without even knowing it. So.
Well, and I guess not to switch gears too much here, but you had mentioned, we talked a little bit about your switch from corporate life into nonprofit life and how you thought that was just the craziest thing you'd ever heard. One of the things that me and Brendan kind of talked about as we were starting the podcast up is that we didn't feel like we had an opportunity to learn a lot about a lot of the jobs and things along those lines out there. So I guess maybe more broad of a question, but what would you say some advantages and disadvantages might be to the nonprofit world, and what kind of person would you advise get into a company structure like that?
Flexibility is an advantage, believe it or not. And when I say flexibility is
not touching your toes is what I'm assuming.
No. You know, it's funny because there are certain times, and it goes with a lot of jobs. We have our cycle year where, like I said, my busy time is summer. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of vacation time in the summer for me during that process. But now, like, this time of year is my slower time of year. So I will be off jokingly over the holidays.
He's taking a vacation, guys. This is a big deal.
But, it's one of the biggest things that I would say that telling somebody who's interested in getting into the nonprofit world, it really is. It's an entrepreneur job. I mean, we're not really technically running our own business, but we are.
Right.
It is, and that was one of the things when my boss hired me, basically in so many words, it was, here's the keys to your castle. You build it. I mean, and so I manage my own budgeting. I manage, so I handle the financials aspect of it. I handle the event side of it. So you really have to be a self-starter in the aspect of this. And like I said, there is flexibility, but there's not a lot of oversight.
I was going to say, I think that there's just a lot of misconception, especially in corporate America, of what a nonprofit is, what it entails, and what the day-to-day looks like. So, and I don't know about Brendan, but I truthfully, outside of, the big ones, the American Red Cross, things like that, I didn't really know that all of these different nonprofits existed for different things. So I think that that's a huge thing for kids coming out, is that if you just have a cause that you believe in, go find somebody doing it, because there's one-man teams like Gene out here that are looking for help. And
I, to that aspect, if you are driven to an organization or to a cause, I'm living proof that, you get in, you get your hands dirty, and it can become a career. I mean, that's, had I never joined the organization back after my transplant or got involved in the board or those type of things, this job would have never happened for me. And so that's where I think probably the biggest thing is to get out there and learn, I joked when I was hired, is I said, I thought I knew, one of the biggest things, I guess, is when I was hired is we joked about fundraising. Fundraising is a major part of my job. I joke that I'm not a fundraiser.
Just good.
Perfect. And that's what I told my boss when he hired me. I'm like, I'm not a fundraiser. And he's
I'm a trainer, but I'm not actually a trainer.
But the one thing is I learned now 4 years later that I am, but I'm not what people consider a fundraiser. I'm the type of person who likes to build relationships. I want to work with an organization or individuals or companies, and let's talk about, like your question earlier, the 5 years ahead, what's coming, where are we headed? What are we doing? It's great if somebody wants to write me a big check. Of course, I'm not going to turn it down.
Heard her watching, by the way,
you're not a salesy person to basically ask for that.
Right. But and so that's where I said I've learned now, over time that's my form of fundraising, is building those relationships and working and having, and that's where it's now fun for me, where that was probably one of the most nerve-wracking parts, where people think of, always the drive for the dollar, drive for the dollar,
Right.
drive for the dollar. And we do, but I tend to do it in a different way.
Well, you build those long-term relationships, and that's going to be more profitable, like I don't want to say, like in the long run, than just checking in with them twice a year and being like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Right.
Building those relationships is what's going to be able to keep doing it for a long time. That's what any kind of business, that really.
Oh, and I was just actually going to ask you that because it's pretty obvious why people end up liking you, Gene. I've only been talking to you for a little under an hour, and I think we're friends already. I'll let you decide that. But as far as that goes, what Brendan knows from experience. But what would you say if you had any skills that you had picked up previously? We know you had said you'd run for a type of a student government position. You had a corporate job. What kind of skills would you say you acquired in the beginning that have helped you the most with spreading awareness for the National Kidney Foundation?
So in my previous life, so a couple things.
That took me off guard. I was like,
my previous life.
"Gotcha."
We're about to go deep, really.
I was
real
like,
quick,
"Wait,
Brendan.
is there a whole other side to this?"
No. So interesting piece is actually growing up, my parents owned a business.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
So I think that work ethic aspect of it prepared me quite a bit. Hence the reason why I originally went into business for my associates and then ultimately my bachelor's when I did it. But through then also the process of my work with the student organization, and then also in corporate America, I actually was a corporate trainer for 3 years of the time
Nice.
that I was with that company, and then also management. It kind of taught me a lot of communication. So it's not always about getting it out. It's also about how to get it out. So you can blast whatever you want through whatever causes you have or whatever for communication. But I think it's also important to be strategic about who you want to reach and how you're reaching them because it's their type of communication.
Right. Kind of but along the old lines of the cliche of it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel.
Correct.
Okay. Very interesting. It's just one of those things that I don't think people take very seriously. I guess you hear nonprofit and you go, oh, well, yeah, that's not a real business, but it absolutely is. I've talked to people at my current job that run nonprofits and you're kidding me if that's not a real business,
right.
Especially with some of these with giant staffs. I mean, they are full on. They're managing books. They're doing everything in between. So I think that's something that's definitely misconstrued out in the public. I was just going to say, before we do let you go, Gene, tell us, how can people find you? Where should they get in touch with you? How can they volunteer? How can they donate? Give us your elevator speech, and you can make it as long as you want.
I don't have the 11 seconds. So
this is where you plug yourself.
15 actually.
We want you to plug yourself because if anybody's out there watching this, Gene's a great guy. Get in touch with him. If you got time, money to spare.
Yeah. Either or, because we're always looking for volunteers as well. 2 ways online to find us is through Facebook, NKF Dakotas, facebook.com/NKF Dakotas. We just started Instagram. So if you're out on Instagram, it's NKF Dakotas as well. National website is a great resource for education, information as well. A lot of what we pull for our Facebook comes from there as well. But
that's kidney.org.
Kidney.org. And then if you want to reach out to me, my number is 605-360-4939 is the office number, or you can find me on Facebook as well. I answer, as Brendan can tell you, I answer hopefully pretty quick through Messenger.
He does a very good job of it.
If you want to reach out,
I should probably just
through
get your
Messenger.
actual phone number at this point instead of just Instagram direct messaging, but whatever, it works.
Yeah. So if you find me out there and you want to message me, that's great too. So, but yeah, reach out. Would love to be able to, like I said, continue to spread our mission.
When is the next opportunity for people to be able to potentially volunteer?
Couple big things coming up after the first of the year. We're in the process of setting our next screening date for February. So hopefully we'll be able to announce a date soon. I'm hoping that actually we'll be announcing it before the holidays. And then March is National Kidney Month. So we'll be doing a whole bunch of stuff. March 12th, it's a Thursday, is World Kidney Day. So we ask people to wear orange and take pictures and share pictures. We're going to do an event, I think, at the Falls that night. So kind of watch out for that too, because we'll be doing a whole bunch of stuff during the month of March.
Nice.
Absolutely. Reach out to us. We'll definitely help you promote
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
If we can do
100%.
everything for you. It's been awesome having you on, Gene.
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Definitely won't be the last time.
Thank you very much, Gene. Your story is phenomenal. You're doing a great job, and we really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
Good job.